here to represent the employers back in the area and really across the state. Essentially what this allows an employer to do that currently cannot do is that shared work for any of the community members who are not familiar with it is that rather than laying your members of your employee group off, you're actually able to allow them to take 1 day a week off and count it as unemployment compensation. Right now they can do that up to half a year. This would extend that to 52 weeks for the year. And I think the reason that's important is that, one, right now some of the work orders are not coming in as quickly as probably some employers would like. And rather than just laying people off where they go on unemployment and lose their benefits during that time period, they're actually able to keep their benefits, able to keep the employer working and help stretch that down a little bit further than they may be able to otherwise. And I had some meetings with some of my employers back home who expressed interest in this to me. And I think this is just one of those common sense things. It's going to have no fiscal impact on the state budget. The employer already pays into it. We're just really, I think, leveraging the program the right way and allowing folks to be able to stay gainfully employed at the same time.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Tracy King here representing the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We too would like to go on record in support of House Bill 1987. We have had several members that are participating in the program that would like to see the extension. We also think it's a good bill because it does save the trust fund $28 million. And as most of you know, we're looking at a deficit of anywhere up to $2.7 billion over the next 5 years that the employer community will have to pay back to the federal government through Title 12 loans. So for those reasons, we do support this bill.
There are 552 employers currently in the program, and there are 42,000 employees covered under these types of programs statewide. Representative Bivens asked about the costs savings, and these are difficult to calculate, but if you look at what the maximum benefit amount of $320 is, and you look at a 40% reduction or 20 to 40% reduction in the workforce and the amount of unemployment that would go out, if they're laying that person off, you cut back their wages, they'd be eligible for $128 a week in benefits, and you multiply that times the number of employers that are participating, and you double that, you still realize a savings to the trust fund of $28 million. Right now we're experiencing a $44 million savings to the trust fund.
House Bill 2059 relates to workers' compensation and second injury fund in particular, hoping to address and improve the solvency of the fund. There are two main provisions in this bill. One is that permanent partial disabilities are being removed from the second injury fund and put back over under workers' compensation. The other major provision is that a workplace injury needs to be medically documented as a workplace injury. There are some other, I'm going to try to, there's a House committee substitute coming, and I'm going to try to talk simultaneously about that. Even though you don't have it, you'll have it by the end of the week, and then we'll consider the House sub next Monday. The sub will address some of the provisions that, in consultation with various attorneys and interest groups involved with the second injury fund. For instance, the Attorney General has put has capped maximum settlements at $40,000. The substitute will take that back to $60,000 at his discretion, so that if he needs to go lower than that to address the balance in the fund, he can do that, but he can't take it any higher than $60,000. Since he's the defender of the fund, I think it's appropriate that he have that ability to do that. Other aspects of the fund, the bill, a workers' compensation council has been created. There will be some slight changes to that. It's in the final sections of the bill. There are term limits. We will be eliminating those term limits on that council. The 3% surcharge on workers' compensation remains capped at 3%. The idea to address the the insolvency of the fund and move it in a positive direction. As many of you have pointed out over the last 5 or 6 sessions, as workers' compensation premiums have come down because the 3% surcharge is tied to those premiums, that, if you will, has sort of decreased the cash flow into the fund. Industry representatives have said that this will push workers' compensation funds or premiums higher and drag that 3% surcharge with it. So those of you who have advocated over the years an increase into the fund, that will do it. I think if you look back at Senate Bills 1 and 130 that were passed in 2005, maybe they've been too successful in reducing workers' compensation premiums, and so I think some of that ground is going to be taken back for the purpose of increasing flow into the fund. This is an injury fund. It's not a Brahma Bull riding on the weekend. It's not obesity. It's not type 2 diabetes. It should deal with workplace injuries.
So at the end of the day, with this bill, the workers will still be protected on the workplace.
Yes.
And protected for an injury that's truly caused by some issue related to their employment.
Yes.
Right. Thank you.
There's one other, by moving, I think some of the attorneys may have been concerned that by moving PPDs out of the second injury fund and putting more of a burden on workers' compensation, that somehow I was trying to break their rice bowl. That's not correct. I'm not even trying to crack their rice bowl. I'm just taking permanent partial disabilities from one end of the table and putting it at the other end. It's still there. If you can do workers' comp cases, you can do second injury fund. If you can do second injury fund, you can do work comp. The idea is just get more cash flowing into the second injury fund and take care of truly injured workers.
So let's see. Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Trey Davis, representing the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry, coming here today to testify in principal support of House Bill 2059 and the efforts to address some of the insolvency issues dealing with the second injury fund. Appreciate Representative Fisher bringing this as one effort to try to address those insolvencies, bringing that forward today. Knowing some of the comments that were made earlier today, I would like to reserve our opinion on those future changes, some of which have been discussed, some that may be brought to the table in the House Committee substitute. I would feel much more comfortable reviewing that language before we make comments on some of those future ideas that were made today. But I tell you, in principle, we are supportive of House Bill 2059. As I said a couple of weeks ago when we met in our committee, we will work with the representative of your committee. Appreciate your work on this as it's moving forward, but we're going to continue to advocate on behalf of our members in holding firm on the 3% surcharge. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I'm going to put this forward as a good faith effort to increase cash flow, if you will, into the second injury fund, and it will do that, which has been many people's point over the last several years, that more money needs to go into the fund, and I'm doing that. There's still a nagging question in my mind. This fund started in 1943, and by 1985 had paid out a grand total of $24 million. And now, since about 2000, 2002, we haven't been able to keep $60 million in it in a year. And I don't think a responsible fix to this, particularly in our economic times for business, where we're telling businesses, please come to Missouri, please expand your existing businesses, create jobs, and oh, by the way, give us more money for the second injury fund. That's not going to create job number one. So I'm willing to leave that as status quo and take a little more indirect method for increasing the cash flow, but it ain't going to fix it right away. All I'm looking for is it nudges the solvency in the right direction.